Be Inspired, Practical Steps for Living a Life Full of Joy is just a simple book. It was just the methods that I used to stay full of joy, and it was helped me through my battle with depression. So 8 years ago, I attempted suicide, and
This is the Gold Medal Mindset, where we bring you all things winning in business, sport, and life. I'm Dr. Jason Richardson, pro BMX world champion and Pan Am Games gold medalist. Now I'm a professional speaker, author, and winning mindset coach. Thanks for joining in. Get ready to mine for gold as we challenge your perception to change your results. I'm super excited to have this guest, B. Smith, author, speaker, and advocate. I will let her explain her advocacy, but right now, B. Smith, thanks for being on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing absolutely awesome.
Absolutely awesome. So we were having some fun offline talking about stuff. Lots of stuff. School and history and names, all of that other stuff. I'm not going to call you out in public. I'll wait till we actually meet face to face for that. But I was telling you that the reason why I wanted to have you, we had a person in common that we knew with Miss Jennifer Quinn. And then, but I was saying what kind of brought us together for this show, and part of it was just how you show up in life and on social, which is just bright, and there's this glow. And then I started digging deeper into your world, and it's like, wow, you're really representing, doing a lot of things. Obviously, as a trained mental health professional, I can appreciate the work you're doing. And we'll speak about that. But and then you're an author, so we had a lot in common as well. So I figured, why not just go for it and invite this young woman on my show and just talk about everything we can talk about in the time. What do you say?
I love it. I'm ready. Let's do this.
You're ready. And by the way, just so you know, I love pushback, so you can ask me questions too. This isn't like,
okay.
Yeah, I'm by no means Fareed Zakaria. I'm not a journalist by any stretch. It's just conversation.
I love it. I love a conversation. That's what I'm talking about.
Good. So you were telling me about this book you wrote. This book about a life filled with joy and how that changed your life. And you were a professor, but then you didn't even have time to profess because this book changed your life because you were so busy. Go.
Well, Be Inspired, Practical Steps for Living a Life Full of Joy is just a simple book. It was just the methods that I used to stay full of joy, and it was helped me through my battle with depression. So 8 years ago, I attempted suicide, and I lived through it. And so many people would ask me about my story, and they were like, well, how do you stay so happy? How do you stay so joyful? How do you keep going? And I got asked that so many times. I was like, you know what? I sat down, I wrote it down, I put it in a book, and it's just changed my life. And I love helping people because we think that it's so complicated, but the things that I learned through my recovery and understanding how I got in the space that I was in, I learned that life is simple, and the steps to living a life full of joy were simple. And so it was my joy to share with people.
Wow. So when I hear the word joy, I feel like that's a couple steps beyond happy.
Whew. You went there.
Well, I'm a trained professional, damn it. Of course I'm going to go there.
I love it. It is. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Jason, anybody can mess with your happy. Like, somebody could piss you off, they could step on your toe, they could cut you off in traffic. Happy is something that, to me, it's not consistent. It's not a something you stay at. It's not your normal. But joy is something that's on the inside, and no matter what you go through, that joy is just, they didn't give it to you, so they can't take it away. That joy is just something that's deep on the inside, and it's a choice that you make, that no matter what you're going through, that nobody's going to steal your joy. They can't take it from you. It's a place that I go quite often.
So professional. This is, I can appreciate that, and that's probably why I clued in on it. So the way I explain it is there's happy is and happy being, right? So like I feel happy, and then there's I is happy. to really butcher the English, I is happy, right? I am happy.
Right.
And the example I use is happiness and sadness exist within happiness and sadness. And I always use the example of a jail, prison, the prison yard, in which you can see a multitude of different people. And you can even possibly see those prisoners joking and laughing, acting happy, feeling happy in that moment, in that situation. However, one would say that they're probably not happy people on the whole, right? Being incarcerated, and maybe they found some happiness. But the reason why I use such a strong example is because I think a lot of us mistake the situational feeling for our overall being. And
Okay.
I think you simplified it even more than me, which is saying, well, you're talking about the joy, right? That's the who you are. That's the core self. And the happy is really like, I'm on a roller coaster versus, whatever else I'm going through. So I appreciate that, but that's how I explain it. There's that situational piece of happiness, but then there's that, I may be unhappy in this moment. However, I am not an unhappy person.
Right.
And we don't always distinguish the feeling for who we are. And I think that's where we get caught up in our, in those weird identity issues and those moods and getting stuck. That's how we get stuck. We mistake our feelings for who we are.
Oh my gosh. Oh, now that's deep. That's really deep, Jason. I'm serious. I'm telling you, when I was dealing with depression, it was my feelings, and it used to irritate me when people would say that, facts over feelings, facts over feelings. But my feelings were not really the facts. But I got stuck in them somewhere and just overly sensitive to everything. So I get it.
Now,
wow.
That's 8 years ago.
Right.
That was 8 years ago. So
right.
That's a long road. And what was it like? What was life like? I'm just going to ask without getting too deep, but if you want to go there, I'm cool with it. But what was life like before that, right? So you were stuck in this feeling. So something was driving those feelings, I'm guessing.
Wow. Yes. So at that particular time, I was working a highly stressful job. I was making the most money like I ever made in my life. So I learned a lot of lessons from that. Money is definitely not a thing. Doing like everything that you think should be right, but then everything was wrong. I was carrying so many things, and like I love talking to little kids because even my parent situation, even the way I came into this world, I never felt wanted. I never was really wanted. There's a little more history to that, but I never was wanted. And so going through my life, I just kept taking that into every relationship, into every phase of my life. And so then I get to adulthood, and, in adulthood, things begin to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You start to have issues in your relationships, your personal relationships, my marriage, my job, having kids, and just life in general, and still taking that little girl, that little broken 6-year-old girl. She's now an adult. She's now, 36 years old, and she's still carrying all that baggage. And it just became to be too much. And I lost my brother. And when I lost my brother, just not allowing myself to grieve. And it's like everything just kept piling on top, on top, on top. And so I learned that if you never deal with the situation, they really don't go away. They just kind of keep following you, and it can snowball, and it did.
So, wanted. Was that?
No, I wasn't wanted.
By a very specific, certain few people is what I'm guessing, or person.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, and I'm pushing back on you right now. Like pull out my little therapy hat right now and say, no, that person may have made the mistake, but that's not necessarily true now, is it? So So you were fortunate. You survived suicide. I mean, like the greatest gift ever, right? Life.
Right. I learned it. Only then did I learn that was a great gift.
But wait, I mean, so we had all of this, right? Because you talked about being 6 to 36. Okay, that's a good run of not feeling wanted, and dare I say, believing that, right? And then we have this. You instigate this life altering event, and you're successful beyond. You're successful despite your effort. How about that?
Right.
You are successful despite your effort, and so you come out on the other side, which I love coming out on the other side, intact. So at what point was it like, you know what? Maybe I don't know, looked at it wrong, viewed it wrong. Please don't let me put words in your mouth, but I want you to touch on the turning of the corner, so to speak, so that, because I think that's where the nuts and bolts are in this whole thing.
Right. I actually labeled that point in time in my life, and I call it the turning point. And so the turning point for me was when I had attempted suicide, and this is in my first book, Fabulous New Life. I actually tell about it. I know now that I was in a coma, but for me, I was like in a whole nother place.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going in and out of consciousness. And my husband, I could hear the doctors, and the nurses talking over me. I'm not quite sure everything that was happening to me, but I could hear people talking. And I distinctly remember the doctor saying to my husband, "This is as far as you can go. You got to go." And when I heard that, I turned my head and I saw my husband looking at me, and he had a tear coming down his face. And immediately I just began to pray, and I'm like, what have I done? And I began to think differently, because up until that point, I thought he didn't want me. I mean, I had, depression had me thinking that I was a waste of space, and everything would be so much better if I just removed myself from the equation.
Oh, the scenarios you play are...
Yeah. Oh my God. I played this one out in my head. I had it together. I had the paperwork ready. Mm-hmm. I had the house together. I had given away everything. I was like, I'm going to make this as smooth for him and these kids as possible. And that's how, deceptive depression is, and being trapped in your own mind. I had told myself this, and I told myself that life wasn't worth living. And then during this experience, I see the sadness on his face, and, my life is flashing before my eyes. And all I ever thought was, my dad never wanted me. But in that moment, I just kept seeing flashes of my dad picking me up. And, like when the daddy picks up the daughter, and he's like swinging me around, I'm like having all these visions, and then I'm having visions of my mother's eyes, and all I could see was my mom's eyes. Out of all the turmoil that me and her went through, and everything that was said, and everything that I experienced with her in that moment, I didn't see any of it. I kept seeing her eyes, and I kept seeing my dad picking me up and swinging me around, and I kept seeing my baby's faces, and I kept having glimpses of like people that I had met in passing that would like hug me. And it's amazing that in the end of your life, it's amazing that I'm holding on to memories of people hugging me. I'm like, ooh, you're thinking you're supposed to see like, your great grandmas and, Moses, and you think the light's coming. I'm here to tell you it's nothing like that. It was glimpses of life in its most beautiful thing. And it was so beautiful to me that I wanted my life back.
You're I don't close the door.
I was like, hold up. Hold up. I was like, wait a minute. And, I told God, I was like, everything that you show me, I was like, tells me that I have had it all wrong. I was looking at the wrong things. I learned so many lessons, like, people don't have to be your blood to love you, because the people that were showing me love in those last moments of my life, they were not family members. They were just people that cared about me and loved me unconditionally. And I'm sitting over here trying to figure out why Jack don't love me, but Jill and James and Jones, and there were so many people, that were there for me. And I don't know. because it wasn't who I thought it was supposed to be, I didn't accept it. And it definitely was a turning point in my perspective. And I definitely respect and appreciate life. And it really is beautiful.
Wow. So people are going to be listening to Gold Medal Mensa like, man, this is heavy, because I had a Holocaust. A gentleman tell me about his grandfather and his story with the Holocaust, and not only was it like, oh yeah, he's a Holocaust survivor, like it just kept going, like it kept getting worse every time he got to a fulcrum of the story. It just kept getting worse. And then this story, I don't view them as, they're heavy. I also view them as very beautiful as well, for the record. But what was coming up for me as you were telling me this was you got outside of yourself to some degree. You know, you got outside of yourself, and it seems weird, but oftentimes the people who are sick, and I'm not saying this to be rude, but I'm saying this in a very clinical way. The people who are sick, like depressed or even anxious to the point to where they're debilitated, possibly some personality issues as well, they're extremely selfish. Now, I know that's right, because you don't equate that. You equate selfish to the person who's like not wanting to share his French fries. That's a definition. That's a definition of selfish. But selfish in the way of unable, and I'm not saying not wanting to, but just unable for whatever reason, due to the sickness even, to think outside of one's own stuff, one's own story, one's own whatever it is that is or isn't working for them. And I think that experience allowed you to get outside of that and then see this man who probably, you know, who not only was your husband, but a father for sure.
Right.
Crying and ultimately wanting you, right? Like proving you're wrong. Right. So, and that's actually a mantra I work with, because when I deal with people who have some debilitating issues like anxiety, I mean, literally that's their mantra. I'm wrong and I'm okay. You probably won't die going outside, and you're okay. Right. And
right.
By the way, if you did, would this be a problem anymore? Right. So not saying that, not dealing with depression though, but from the anxiety side, but it's pretty interesting though, once you can get someone outside of themselves, right? And that's in sickness, then they start to find some joy and some purpose and some happiness. But then even if you are in health, I've noticed that once people get outside of themselves, there's more joy and happiness and purpose. Interesting.
Yeah.
That way. So I feel like, but then at the same time, there's this yin and yang, right? Because there is a responsibility to take care of yourself. There is a responsibility to possibly pay yourself first if you're in business, and to make sure that, you have your air mask on before your child in the airplane, all this other stuff, right?
Yes.
But that's the natural checks and balances of things. And so from then on, did you continue to struggle a bit from that experience, or was it like, boom, just you hit the road and just totally went the other way?
I wish it would have been that way, but it wasn't. I went to, I always tell people, I love to tell the kids, I'm like, now look, you attempt suicide, you don't go home to mama. Mm-hmm. You got to go to another place. And so, I went through the therapy. I went through the 3 weeks at the facility. And then I ended up leaving the facility and going to group therapy, and I got better. But the one thing that I did is I forgot the promise that I made to God, because I promised him that if he gave me my life, that I would share all the beautiful things he showed me that day. But instead, I went back to little selfish B and just thought, I'm out. I'm going to go back to normal. I'm going to live my life and pretend like this never happened. Well, I ended up getting depressed and almost suicidal again. And
Mm.
so I had to learn. That's why I really had to pull. That's how the second book got written, actually, is my friends were like, they were like, we could tell that I was in trouble and that I was struggling. And so they took me to New Mexico for like a week. And my poor husband, and they were like, well, we're going to take her. And he was like, please take her, because I don't know what to do. I
Hmm.
don't know what to do with her, and I have to feel like, how does the family and friends feel when they have a family member that's like locked inside of their own mind and you can't reach them?
Hmm.
And so it was a really hard time for me. And so I had to really remember everything that God showed me. I had to remember all of the things that kept me well all that time. And I basically had to go back through the steps again. And so I learned that depression and it's something, it's almost like it's going to be a lifelong thing for me to consistently stay on top of my health, like taking care of myself and putting myself first so that I can be there for other people. My fitness, my meditation, my prayer. So all those things go into keeping me whole and keeping me healthy. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. You totally answered that question. You knocked it out of the park, even. How's that?
yeah. I always want to answer the question.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, that's good. And it's also important that people recognize that even as much as you can have a life-changing experience and you see the light as it was or as it is, that you are still left with you, right? Like there's still a responsibility to quote Spike Lee, do the right thing.
Yep. It's still a
Um,
responsibility to change.
there's still a responsibility to change. So you can, and that's I guess that's the difference between being, knowing something and believing something, which is why I think
Right.
a lot of people struggle with change because I think for the most part people know that smoking a cigarette is bad or eating too many Doritos is probably not the good thing for you, but they do it anyway, right? So,
Right.
but you create this story as to why it's okay to keep smoking or why it's okay to have that extra drink or why it's okay to keep shoving, processed foods down your face. And maybe it's I'll work out tomorrow, or maybe it's I'm so blessed. My body knows exactly what to do with it, and I'll be fine anyway. I don't know, whatever stories your brain makes up, but it's these drives, right? That we have to. No, I'm not even gonna say that we have to. That we get the opportunity to improve upon
Right.
these drives. So, wow. So you're doing something very special in April, and I want you to tell the world about what you're doing because I want it to be very
Oh,
successful, and I believe that it will help a lot of people, and they will gain a lot out of it. And I have a lot of listeners in the Oklahoma area.
what? I'm excited. I'm excited. So April 6th, like I said, I made a promise that I would share the joy that I found and share with my community. And so April 6th is going to be a dynamic day. It's a fundraiser. We're going to raise funds to film a documentary called Empowered by Grace. And Empowered by Grace is going to be a series that deals with not only depression and suicide, but every episode is going to deal with a societal issue. But we're just going to make mine the first. And we're going to talk about depression and suicide. And I'm going to share my story in a raw. I've never shared it beyond a like 3.5 minute interview, like
Mm-hmm.
television, or
Or
it's always been
podcast.
really quick, or a podcast. Like, people are going to see me share my story from beginning to end, like even talking about the health issues that I still have to this day because of the method that I use, and just how it affects my family. And we're going to talk about how suicide affects a community. Matter of fact, it's in my community. And so Crossings Community Center is around the corner from my house. We're going to talk about how one suicide affects a community.
Mm.
So had I died that day, I'm going to take everyone through a scenario of what one life does to an entire community to show people how important it is to look after our family members. We're going to learn about We're going to have professionals to come in and show us how to know when someone's in trouble. Social media posts. We'll have a social media expert that will come in and show you, because a lot of the suicides in this area, about 90% of them posted on social media that they were going to commit suicide, and just how to decode those messages. You know, for people that don't know how to decode the messages, you're not depressed. You haven't dealt with it. You don't understand it. But someone like me, I could look at it and say, hey, this is a cry for help. And so how we can be a community and come together and see and help, not just see it, but help. Like, we had one suicide where the young lady posted it and it was shared for 26 times, but nobody went to her house to see about her.
Oh, that's terrible.
Because they didn't know. They didn't know. They just thought she was leaving a message, but she was leaving a message. All right. She was leaving a message of goodbye. And so we want to be able to help people. We can't save everyone, but if we can save one life, it means everything to me, you know. And if I don't do another thing in my life, if I never write another book, if I never publish another book, if I never stand on another stage, I've got to film this documentary. It's everything in me, because I can't be everywhere, but this story can be everywhere. And just to share with someone that, you know, you can change your thinking, you can change your mind, you can change your life. And, you know, I had to change my mindset. I had to change my thinking, and I had to see myself winning, and I had to see myself, you know, everything I'm doing now, I saw myself doing it, but you've got to change your thinking. And I just want to change some minds that day. I want to change some hearts. I want some community leaders to join in with me. And they are. It's B. Smith and Friends. And they're going to join in with me. And we're going to help change our community for the better.
Boom.
On April 6th.
The community and possibly the world.
The world.
Let's go big.
And the world.
Let's go big.
Pinky in the brain. We want to change the world.
You're on the gold medal mindset here. And just going to let you know that we might as well change the world if we can.
Yes.
Right? Why not? So,
Why not?
just to be clear, April 6th. April 6th, where and what time?
It's going to be at Crossings Community Center and Clinic. April 6th, that's a Friday night, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Boom. That
Great way to
sounds
spend a
fun.
Friday night.
Sounds like a great night. Super valuable. We're going to shift gears just a bit because we had this talk. We had your story. I did mention that you were a professor and that you're no longer doing that, and you've written and you're speaking. So how do you make a buck?
How do I make a buck? Let me tell you, this journey has been something else. I love books. So you read my book. I've always been a lover of books. Anybody that knows me knows that, you know, my nickname was Bookworm. I love books. And I was just sharing this with some middle school students, because I still sub, you know, in my area. I still got the teacher bug.
Yeah.
I love teaching.
Yeah.
So I will sub. And so I started a publishing company, and it's not about the money, but I actually get to make money helping other people share their stories. So not only can I share and help people that may be struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts, but I'm able to help people publish stories that inspire. And so I started a publishing company, and I'm helping other people. And speaking always helps too, you know. I'm out there living, you know, I'm out there speaking and sharing my story, and I may have an organization that says, hey, can you come share, you know, your story with us? And then I'm in other people's books.
Yeah. Just, it's so funny. So you can't see us because this is an audio only recording, but I have Jennifer Quinn's book on my desk, which is awesome. Leverage live streaming to build your brand. I turn it over, and whose name do I see? Is Dr. B. Smith, founder of Be Inspired Digital Brand. So, and then I teased her and showed her her own
That is so funny.
Her own quote on the back cover of the book. So I just thought that was hilarious. But yeah, so okay, so in service of others and helping them to get their story out, you have a publishing company. You're speaking, you're still authoring, and you're subbing. So that's several revenue streams. Some traditional, some not so traditional, and some you've created for yourself that you're making it happen.
And I love it. Like, I read the books like I'm like, oh, this is cool. Oh, this is good. Girl, give me more,
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing that I can
Do you have any
feed.
men? Do you have any men that you're publishing, or is it all women?
Yes, I do. I actually have. There's a story that's going to be so bananas. There's a guy that had 4 clogged arteries, and he changed his lifestyle. He thought he would never stop eating meat. Total plant-based diet. And so his story comes out
Okay.
in 2018. And so I got men. I got men on the roster, and,
Okay.
and it's amazing. It's so diverse.
Good.
All walks of life.
It'd be fine if it was women only. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Hey, I don't discriminate. I love stories that inspire, and I love it that we're gonna be such a diverse family of authors, and so non-traditional in the fact that all of us are the same way. It's a business, right? But it's not about the money. They're doing it for the message, and creating products that they can take with them so he can share with other people who may be dealing with some health issues and how to live a better life. And I never thought, like I told you, little 6-year-old girl that loved books, I never thought in a million years that this would be my life. I didn't even think I was going to have a life. And so I can be able to share other inspiring stories, and those stories inspire me to keep going.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of selfishness in there.
I know, isn't it?
That's okay. That's okay. So it's not selfish. It's like self-ish. It's like self-ish. It's kind of like being 15 minutes late to a party. That's allowed. So
Late.
on the gold medal mindset, we, meaning me, like to ask everybody the same question. I think I may have forgotten once. Now that I'm going back over the previous recordings that I've done in my head, but that's okay. We ask everybody the same question, and it's the golden question. You've left a lot of gold nuggets on the show already, but what is one thing? And I have a feeling you're gonna answer this pretty easily. What's one thing you wish every human knew? Not about you, but you're on this earth. Somehow, some way you got here. What do you want that person to know for themselves so they can move through this world as best they can?
The one thing that I want everyone on this earth to know is that they have a purpose for being here. Everyone has a purpose. It is a purpose that is meant for the greater good of everyone else. We all have a purpose. No one is a waste of space.
There we go. We got a little bit existential on the gold medal mindset today. Walking in faith, I think. Walking in faith.
Hey.
So, wow. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I'm good, but if you want to talk about anything else, that's fine. You were like, we kind of killed it this time.
We killed it.
We killed it. You killed it. You killed it.
Nailed
We're doing we're doing a Skype pound right now.
Oh, the Skype pound.
We did a Skype pound, yeah. So we killed it. So, but is there anything else you'd like to say? If anyone you want, how can people get in touch with you? How can they find you if they're an aspiring author? Where, how, what, all things be? How can they find you? Get to know you.
The most simple way to get in touch with me. I've got this page. It's bsmith.live. And on that page, you can connect with me on Instagram. You can click and connect with me on Facebook. You can click and connect with me on LinkedIn. You can click and connect with me everywhere at bsmith.live. Like I said, I'm B Smith on Facebook. Maybe you want to be an author. It's Be Inspired Publishing on Facebook. But bsmith.live, you can click and it can connect you everywhere. Because, I got the Instagram persona, there's like crazy videos there. I love living a life full of joy, and I love being candid. And so there's so many facets to who I am, and I'm enjoying all of them.
I can tell. That's good.
That's what life is all about, man. I'm telling you.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to meeting you face to face in person. I would say in real life, but the truth is this has been a real conversation, and I was taught by Mr. Tim McDonald several years ago at the What If conference that in real life this is real. So you're real, I'm real. We just happen to be talking via Skype and computer and technology, but it's still real. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking the time to mine for gold on the Gold Medal Mindset podcast. Let's keep the conversation going on Twitter at RealDrJRich or on the web at drjasonrichardson.com. That's drjasonrichardson.com. Take care and have a great day.